Hello, welcome back to some more Perils in Paradise reveals. Up today was Priest, and Priest was one of the interesting classes because we had no idea what was in Priest. No card has been revealed so far for Priest. All we're aware of is the Demon Hunter Taurus in Priest, and in fact we've already seen that Arana exists for the Demon Hunter Priest Taurus card, and kind of gave you this indication that maybe there was going to be some sort of pain package for Priest. That's all the intel we had on it. Demon Hunter didn't have any other pain cards inherently in the package, so I assumed they were going to be in Priest. Also, Priest is going to Taurus in Hunter, and we've not seen any Hunter cards, so really we were like, what is in Priest? What was in Priest is actually the pain package. So let's go through some of the pain package cards. Nightshade T, 2-mana shadow spell. It is one of the drinkies. It is a deal 3 damage to a minion, deal 2 damage to your hero, 3 drinks left. Interesting card. As I mentioned before, this pain type of card has seen play in Hearthstone before, and sees play currently in Hearthstone. It's normally something that is in the Warlock package. That is kind of one of their identities. We have seen this once in Priest before. Even then, though, this was a dual class card between Priest and Warlock called Raise Dead. And Raise Dead was a really good card, and actually pretty good in Priest because Priest can heal off the pain damage from your face, and you can be happy again. You basically get the effect, not quite for free, but you know what I mean. You can mitigate the downsides of it fairly easily. Now, obviously, this card is intended to be used with Arana. Big effect on Arana being that if you take damage, instead your opponent takes the damage. And this is sort of the effect of the classic card from Warlock, whose name I may have forgotten right now, and I'm just trying to, give my memory banks time to get up. The Demon Seed. If you complete through the Demon Seed questline, you get Tamsin, which means that anytime your face takes damage, your opponent takes the damage instead. Now, Arana isn't quite that powerful. Firstly, it's not a for the rest of the turn effect, as we discussed last time. It is a only viable while this is on the field type effect. It's an aura type thing. Also, it's not straight to the face, it's to a random enemy, so it's actually a pretty substantially weaker card compared to that. That being said, it could lead to some really toxic gameplay styles. You may also notice that through the course of this is basically a more Demon Hunter reveal, because I don't think some of these cards will be Arana in Priest, so you're going to see Arana a lot this episode. Anyway, the quality of the card itself. Warlock has a card called Drain Soul. That is 2 mana, deal 3 damage. And you get the lifesteal back off it, so it's 2 mana, deal 3 damage with an upside. Nightshade T is 2 mana, deal 3 damage to a minion, with a pretty big downside. You take 2 damage, so the card quality itself is kind of weak. Now, I will say, you can argue, and by argue, you're completely right, that it does have the advantage over Drain Soul that you do get 2 more uses of it, so it's sort of like 2 mana, deal 3 damage to a minion, take 2 damage, and draw a bad card, because I think everyone would accept that Drain Soul doesn't really see much play right now in Hearthstone. Nightshade T is sort of a weaker card than it as like a baseline. Therefore, you're drawing a pretty bad card for the Nightshade Ts. But as I said, the obviously inherent advantage of this card is to enable these pain effects on your cards. So we're going to need to see at some point what the benefit is to taking this face damage is going to be. Also worth noting, you can do some really memey shit with this Nightshade T and Arana. I mentioned a lot of Arana before for the Demon Hunter package that we're just going to use this as a combo card. You're going to draw into Fatigue, and she's going to machine gun down your opponent. You could play her as more of a mid-ranger card, hit her with a Nightshade T, and maybe use something like Crimson Expanse to hide her, so to speak, in a dormant state. You could also use Red Card from Demon Hunter, again, to make it dormant and just hide her until you're ready to keep taking this face damage. I think this is a complete meme, but bear in mind you could hit your own minion with a Nightshade T, which would trigger the Arana effect and do 2 damage to a random enemy minion, and allow you to do this Crimson Expanse thing, but I think it's a bit of a meme. Also worth mentioning, I didn't really talk about this before, but it's true for all the drinkies. If you could get a Concierge up, and we do see that there is a big pirate package in Demon Hunter, so it's not unrealistic that you might put a pirate, aka Concierge, in your deck. Concierge is really good with these drinkies. Cards from other classes get discounted by 1. You will start as a Demon Hunter if you're using the Priest Taurus. Therefore, Nightshade Ts will cost 1. So then it becomes 1 mana, deal 3 damage. Do 2 to your face, draw a bad card, which actually is a much more appealing effect and could lead to some pretty nice combo wombos. That being said, obviously, if you just play this bare without any other mana discounts or any way to cheat out the Concierge, she kind of just pays for herself with Concierge plus Nightshade's Tea, because you're going to discount 3 mana on the Tea, and she's a 3 mana minion. To be fair, you do get a 0 mana 3/4, sorry, basically for that cost, so it is worth doing it if you can set it up. One other final thing, I actually forgot to mention this last time on the Demon Hunter one. There is this card currently existing in Standard that sees 0 play, called Trog Exile. Obviously it works pretty nicely with Arana as well, and this idea of the Pain package. It's 3 mana 4/4 rush, Battlecry deal 4 damage to your hero. Obviously that's pretty nice with Arana. You play the 3 mana 4/4 with Arana. It does 4 damage to a random minion, and the Trog can then rush and do another 4 damage elsewhere. That's not a completely insane combo. That being said, Trog Exile, if it was really, really good, surely it would see play in Pain Warlock. I know it's not quite the same because you don't get the 4 damage off Arana, but because it's not seeing play in Pain Warlock, I'm kind of hesitant to say that it would see play in this deck, but just be aware that it exists. Okay, let's look at some more support. We have Acupuncture. This actually is an insane card. 1 mana Shadow Spell, deal 4 damage to both heroes. Wow, that's potentially, if you set up the combo wombo, 1 mana deal 8 damage. Just as a baseline, it's almost like the Priest version of Spirit Bomb. Now, Spirit Bomb had to hit a minion, and then you would take the 4 damage from the Spirit Bomb. Acupuncture, you can't hit the minion, but you can hit the face instead. So Acupuncture is a more aggressive version of Spirit Bomb. Obviously, with Arana, though, this is an extremely nice combo because suddenly it's a 6 mana deal 8 damage to the opponent's face. Get a 5/6. And I say to the face, it's 4 guaranteed to the face, 4 to another minion, assuming they have another minion on board. So it's a little bit weaker than that, but if you can set up a state where the board is clear and you play your Arana into your Acupuncture, you're outputting a lot of damage and getting a pretty well-statted minion with that as well. So that's actually pretty disgusting. Obviously, this card being very cheap on in terms of spell quality, that wasn't very smart. Being very cheap in terms of mana, sorry, the quality is actually very high. I think this is something that we could justify running Tide Pool Pupil into to set up this combo. You play your Acupuncture, maybe you play multiple Acupunctures, your other spells, you put into the Tide Pool Pupil, then you play your Pupil, get another Acupuncture back, and you just keep the Arana Machine Gun combo going. There is also a potential route to doing this with Pip the Potent instead. She can copy 1-cost cards, right? You may be noticing the downside of this though. You can't put Pip the Potent in your Demon Hunter Priest deck. Therefore, if you were going to run Pip the Potent in your Pain package, it would have to be on the baseline Priest card, which means you can't put Arana in your deck. And as I'll talk about later on, I think that is too big a price to pay, so as nice as it would be for Pip to copy this card, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. Now, maybe in the future there will be some sort of spell damage Shadow Priest deck that machine guns your opponent down instead of using the Arana win condition. You're literally just trying to get your health higher than your opponent's, and then just use Acupuncture to take them down. Maybe that then sees playing, you know, the Pip combo Acupuncture is good enough, but currently I don't see that working. What I do see working, though, is what I mentioned last time. I literally had this as an image. You draw a bunch of cards in your deck with, like, Glaive Tower, Weight of the World, the other draw mechanics in Demon Hunter. You play your aggro parachuting pirates, and I mentioned there, is there anything from Priest that's going to help with this combo to get you over the line? The Glaive attack could draw you 7 cards into Fatigue. Is there anything else that Priest can offer to help you? Well, now we have the answer. Yes, it's Acupuncture. You draw a huge amount of cards into Overdraw, the Arana starts machine gunning your opponent down, and then the Acupuncture is a really nice way to finish your opponent off. Assuming your big draw clears the board as well, this turns your Acupunctures into 1 mana deal 8 damage. At the very least, it's 1 mana guaranteed 4 damage to the opponent's face, which actually is really, really good at this stage of the game. Also, bearing in mind, you could run some spell damage minions in your deck with the Acupunctures, in which case you're sort of getting double the bang for your buck with the Blood Mage Thalmoses with the +1 spell damage or the Kobold Geomancers, because then you're doing +5 damage to both heroes. And with Arana, you're, doing the Uno reverse on the card's damage that's going to your face, in which case your opponent takes the 5 from the Acupuncture to their side, and then the 5 that would go to you then goes to your opponent. So you get 10 damage instead for 1 mana. It's not quite for 1 mana, obviously you need to play the Thalmos with it, so it's more like 3 mana, but maybe you do play your Arana, you break your Glaive Tower, you have no more cards in your deck, you draw 7 cards or something, then you play Thalmos, Acupuncture, Acupuncture, and I think that is going to break most decks back. And that's even if the patches doesn't do it. You might be able to just break down your opponent with a really aggressive opening and set up this board state, as I mentioned, that their health total is so low compared to yours. You can just bare use the Acupunctures to reach them. I think this could legitimately be a strong deck. Now we have some more addition to the pain package. Brain Masseuse. 1 mana 2/4. It's an undead pirate, of course it is. Why wouldn't it be a pirate? Whenever this minion takes damage, also deal that amount to your hero. It's kind of a combination, I mean, I say a combination. It's got the stat line of Vulgar Homunculus, which was a card that actually did see some play in Warlock, that had Taunt, was 2 mana, and Battlecry just did 2 damage to your hero. That was the set effect. The actual effect on it is the same as Soulbound Ashtongue, which was from Ashes of Outlands, and I think people were worried about this card being really strong. It turned out to see, like, no play because you took too much damage from it. Instead of having the exact same, though, like, stat line and everything, it has 1 more attack and is now an undead pirate, so it has a tribe on it. I still think this is probably a little bit too risky to play. At the very least, you're taking 4 damage off this card. You're probably going to take some more than 4 damage, though, off this card, and it could lead you into some really scary situations where, you know, they might do 3 damage to it at first and then hit it for 5, and suddenly you're taking 8 damage off your 2/4. Obviously, a 2/4 stat line for 1 is insane. Obviously, it had to come with a pretty big downside, but I think this is maybe too big a downside. That being said, though, there is this card currently existing in Priest called Purifying Power that sees 0 play, mainly because it kind of requires you to have a Zoo Priest deck, and currently we can't have a Zoo Priest deck because the support isn't simply there for it. This Brain Masseuse, though, actually gets you into the realm of possibilities. This obviously would just be in the Priest package, because you can't put Purifying Power on your Demon Hunter Priest deck, because they can't talk to the old sets. You play maybe your Brain Masseuse. Let's say you play Brain Masseuse, coin Brain Masseuse. Your opponent is not dealing with 4/8 in stat lines on turn 2. I don't care what class you are, you can't deal with it. Then on the next turn, you play your Purifying Power, you silence your minions so you don't get the negative downside, and then you turn them into 3/6s instead on turn 2, you have 2 3/6s. That is probably game versus most decks. That is going to be super, super backbreaking, so maybe this will spawn actually a different archetype from the Pain package. Maybe you'll instead see some sort of Zoo silencing Priest deck. We've seen them in the past. I still don't think the support is there, but just bear in mind these cards exist. Also, bear in mind this card exists. I don't think Octomasseuse is going to see any play. No one has seemed to have been able to break the card yet since it was revealed. However, if Brain Masseuse became an unbelievable god tier card, if it became Exodia, Octomasseuse is the tech card against it. Because if your Octomasseuse hits their Brain Masseuse, you take 8 damage to the face, and that isn't very cash money. If you give your Octomasseuse plus 3 attack, you hit them for 32 damage to the face, and they die. So you have to be very careful with Brain Masseuse if Octomasseuse is in the set. And actually being ran in the set, sorry. And I don't think it will be, so you're probably fine. But to be fair, I don't think either Brain Masseuse or Octomasseuse will see any play. That being said, again, let's go back to this combo wombo. You could potentially set up a situation where you do this draw into Fatigue, and instead of playing the 1 mana acupunctures, you play Brain Masseuse and you start hitting with Nightshade Tea. Because if you do that, the Nightshade Tea 3 damage that would normally only go to a minion will hit you in the face thanks to Brain Masseuse. And because it hits you in the face thanks to Brain Masseuse, it hits Arana. And that Arana then turns that around, gives it a little U-turn, and it goes into your opponent's face, and suddenly the Nightshade Teas are doing 5 damage randomly split to your opponent as 2 and 3 damages. And also worth noting, the Nightshade Tea will generate another Nightshade Tea, which you could use on the Brain Masseuse again, do another 3 damage, and basically set up that combo again to do another 5 damage. All in all, it's 10 mana to do 10 damage randomly to your opponent, plus the fatigue damage. Maybe it's good enough that if you run out of acupunctures early, you have to burn them for whatever reason. This is an alternate win condition to get you over the line, so just bear in mind, again, this exists. And also bear in mind there are other cards potentially you could use to target your own Brain Masseuse to hit Arana to do some, damage to your opponent instead. Okay, now we get to actually a payoff for taking damage to the face, and I actually think this is a really, really strong payoff. Hot Coals, 3 mana fire spell for Priest, very interesting. Deal 2 damage to all enemies. If your hero took damage this turn, you deal 1 more. 3 damage to all enemies on a situational effect was on the card effect of Fellfire in the Hall from Warlock. This was a 5 mana spell, by the way, for Fell, and actually its criteria was probably harder to do because you had to draw a spell. If it was a Fel spell, you dealt that extra 1 damage. It kind of precluded you from running anything other than Fel spells because you really wanted to get the additional 1 damage from this card. Felfire also a little bit of play here and there. Hot Coals, on the other hand, it just requires you to take damage, and actually it's going to be pretty easy for you to take damage because you're going to be a Demon Hunter. You can just push your button and hit another minion. And honestly, I think at 4 mana doing 3 damage to all enemies is probably worth it, honestly. It's Magtheridon's effect, basically, and when we had a very strong set with Window Shopper Demon Hunter, it wasn't really the stat line on Magtheridon that killed people, it was this endless taking 3 damage across the board. Nothing could stick on your side, you were always getting chipped down, and it was really frightening. I do appreciate that Magtheridon did 6 over 2 turns, and you could get multiple Magtheridons, and you're taking like 12 over 2 turns instead, which was truly, truly horrible. But the Hot Coals is still a little bit of extra chip damage for your face deck, potentially, your face spell pain deck. Also, bear in mind, you could run this with something like Incendious, again, just to keep your opponent's board in check. You try and play aggro versus me, good luck with that. I'm just going to keep doing, eruptions on you, I'm going to do Hot Coals on you. I think this could be a pretty strong card. I definitely think if this Demon Hunter pain package is fully worked together, I think Hot Coals will get into that deck. The other payoff, and this is probably the biggest payoff for the pain package as like the focus of the deck, your Sauna Regular 5 mana 5/5 undead with Taunt costs 1 less for each time your hero is taking damage on your turn. Okay, this is basically a Thirsty Drifter-like effect. We've seen this effect before on Priest cards, and every time we see this effect in a Priest card, it breaks the game. So there is a pretty, positive sign here to say this is going to break the game. Only downside, if you're a Priest enjoyer, you obviously will be playing Demon Hunter, because they're the better Priest now. I'm saying that very tongue-in-cheek, but for this set, they're a better Priest. You take damage from your own cards, you do it 5 times, this is 0 mana 5/5. Very good. Funnily enough, we have a current deck that does something very similar. It's called Pain Warlock. They run Imprisoned Horror. Now, I would argue it's easy to get Imprisoned Horror... pardon me. It's easy to get Imprisoned Horror down to 0 mana. It is only a 4/4. It used to be 5/5 when the deck was really strong, but it's probably easier for Warlock to get that down to 0 mana, because instead of having these individual events of taking damage on your turn, it is just the full damage that discounts the Imprisoned Horror. And you can hit yourself for 5 in the face fairly easily with Warlock nowadays. But, the proof is there. If you build the Pain deck, it could work. And it also points to some other cards you want to put in your deck. Why would you not put Molten Giant in this deck? Why would you not put Sheriff Barrelbrim in the deck? And in fact, we have a Sheriff Barrelbrim-like card in Sensory Deprivation. 6 mana Shadow Spell. Summon a copy of an enemy minion. If you have 20 or less health, destroy the original. We've had a few cards, especially recently, that just copy enemy minions or copy minions in general. We have Funhouse Mirror, full enough, in Priest that is seeing 0 play, which summons a copy of an enemy minion and attacks the original. Normally that results in both minions dying, which is kind of like 3 mana killer guy. That is okay. It does see some play, this card, in Highlander Priest, I do appreciate. There was also Reverberations. This did see a lot of play. Now, this was a very, very flexible card in its defense. It could hit your own minions and could set up some combos. Also, when you were running the Rainbow Mage deck, it was a Shadow Spell, which is very nice for Mage. This was again 3 mana copier guy, and it kind of made them very fragile and easy to kill, which probably meant that for your Reverberations, if you wanted to kill the opponent's minion, you're probably spending less than 6 mana to get the copy and kill the opponents. Now, I will say on that though, you made yours also fragile, so it was easy for your opponent to deal with it. Sensory is a little bit more expensive on top of that, but you don't get this fragile variant. Now, I will say this is a specific combo, you have to be below 20 health for this to work. I think at 6 mana, copying an enemy minion for the most part is pretty bad. But just as, the full combo of this card, it's not just copy a guy, it's kill a guy. Currently targeted killing a guy is in Rogue, it's Assassinate. It sees 0 play, so it basically implies that 4 mana for killing a targeted minion isn't good enough right now in Hearthstone, so it's probably sitting somewhere around the 3.5 to 3 mana region. So actually, when you bundle all of this together, Sensory Deprivation isn't a bad card, but you really need to take that 10 damage early. I think otherwise it's a pretty bad card. That being said, you've seen all the Pain package, right? Surely it's easy enough to take the 10 damage. I think it is easy enough by turn 6 to take 10 damage as this deck. Now, here's where I get into a little bit of Oh, I'm not sure this is going to actually work, though. How heal? How heal? You may have noticed something, and maybe you have already put these pieces together. You're playing as a demon hunter. Your button is claws. You don't have heal on your button, which is normally what you have on priest. So you can't heal with the priest button. That's okay, I'll put those healing priest cards in my deck. Oh wait, I'm touristing from demon hunter into priest, and none of them have heal on them, so you literally don't have the upside for playing priest, or what would be a theoretical upside for playing priest with a pain package. You can't heal the damage back off very easily. And this probably means that to make this deck work as like this more like mid-rangey, more like the Pain Warlock package, you're going to have to use Lifesteal from Demon Hunter. They have some good options. I think Bullhog is a really good card. I think you'll probably play this in this like mid-range Pain Demon Hunter / Priest deck. You could also run stuff like I-Beam. There are other Lifesteal options out there as well for you, including the Titan for that matter. But I don't think they're as good or as consistent as you could get from Priest. And this leads me to come to a conclusion about Arana. Because let's be real, I might be doing the Priest reveal, but really I'm doing more of the Demon Hunter reveal. I think there's going to be a couple of decks that Arana could spawn. I think there is this mid-range Pain Demon Hunter Priest deck that's going to use a lot of these cards. Basically, they're going to use all of the Priest cards we've seen so far, plus some, obviously, select cards from the Demon Hunter package to pad out the deck, including some of these Lifesteal cards. And I think that is going to be a decent deck. However, I also can't help but think it would be better for you to play Pain Warlock, which has a lot better stabilization when you take these big chunks of damage. Like, set your health back to 15 again. You could put other lifesteal cards from Warlock into that deck to heal back up again. So, I think it's going to sit around that Pain Warlock deck, but I think it's going to be slightly weaker than it, just from a bit of my gut instinct. I haven't put the deck together yet, but I feel like it's going to be slightly weaker than that deck. Then I think there's going to be this other deck, which is going to be the aggro combo deck, as I call it, or Plinky finish them with fatigue deck, that basically are going to use all these parachuting pirates. You're going to try and draw through your deck as quickly as possible. You're going to be so aggressive. The curve is going to be as low as you possibly can get it, with the exception of this Arana card. And then once you've drawn every card, you'll play Arana, you'll draw 7 cards, and then maybe you'll run Acupuncture with it, and that will be your win condition to finish them off. And you just won't run any of the other cards, because simply they are too expensive to run with the rest of this package. And this then gets me to my third point about this package. I don't think any of these Pain Package cards will be run in Priest standalone. I think you'll only ever run this with Arana, because I think Arana is a big enough payoff to kind of justify doing this package. Also is a big enough reason to say, like, why I'm doing it with this class and not with Warlock. It's a different way of playing the game, so to speak, and also a different way to combo your opponent down and kill them. Without Arana, you're looking at using the Sauna, you're looking at using the Isolation Chamber, whatever it's called, the Emotionless Chamber, I've already forgotten what it's called. I just don't think those payoffs are worth running it so that you can play Pip, so you can play healing. So, sorry Priest lovers, I think half of your set is simply not going to be played in Priest. But what about the other half? We have Narain Soothe Fancy. 4-mana 4/4 legendary minion. Battlecry, get 2 fortunes that are copies of the top card in your deck. And this is literally the example of the fortune. It's very similar to something like Spirit of the Badlands that gave you a permanent Mirage. The permanent Mirage always existed in your hand and was always a minion that was in your deck. Now, the Fortune could be a minion in your deck as long as it's the top card of the deck. It could also be a spell, so it has a bit more flexibility on Spirits of the Badlands in the sense that you could get a spell or a minion. However, you only get 2 of them, you don't get this infinite value. That being said, Spirit of the Badlands has a pretty big negative to get you that really powerful effect, whereas Nirain could just go into any Priest deck. The other big advantage of this card is actually with the next card I'm about to go through. It's Twilight Medium, a 6-mana 5/6 minion, Taunt, Battlecry, set the cost of your top card of your deck to 1. This is disgusting mana cheat, like truly disgusting mana cheat. If you get a 10-cost minion on the top of your deck, and you play your Twilight Medium, hey, you've discounted 9 mana. Very good for setting up combos if there's any combo decks out there for Priest right now. And one good way to look at the top card of your deck is to generate some fortunes from Narain. So I think this is obviously a combo wombo. You play your Narain, you have these 2 fortunes that are always, flicking over. And eventually you'll get to this one card, or you will get to some of these cards that you might want to combo into it. You play your Twilight Medium, which, by the way, the fortunes are copies of them, so the fortune will also get discounted to 1, and then maybe you'll play that fortune from your hand. Maybe you'll play both fortunes at the same time from your hand. And you could cheat out some really big shit, and that's going to be very, very scary. There are other ways to do this as well. You could use Overplanner from this set that lets you discover 3 cards in your deck, and you put them on top in that order. In which case you could Overplanner, find this really good card, use your Twilight Medium to get you a discount, and then play the discount minion on the next turn. I think both are pretty good. I think these are definitely cards you would consider running in some sort of controlled priest deck. We also have the spell Rest in Peace, 3-mana shadow spell. Each player summons their highest cost minion that died this game. We have obviously seen Resurrect in Priest in the past and in the present. We have Resurrect on Katrina Murti, for example, for resurrecting a undead minion. We also have this on spells, for example, Endgame in Warlock, that lets you resummon the last demon that died. This has only just started seeing play, funnily enough, in Standard, actually in a pretty good deck as well. It's in Even Warlock now. Part of it because it is a good card, but also part of it because it is even. Before then, it wasn't seeing that much play. Rest in Peace for 1 more mana lets you get the highest cost minion from your death pool. I would argue that is the better pool from all of these pools here. I think it's better than getting a demon, better than an undead, and also it doesn't have to be like the last demon that died. It is literally the highest cost card, so you can tutor for some very specific cards with that. Now, you may point out that the big disadvantage, and you're right, is it's each player, so it's a symmetrical effect. Normally, symmetrical effects in Hearthstone aren't particularly good unless, of course, you can abuse it. And of course, you can abuse this really well with Priest, because 2 of the most expensive minions in Priest are Aman'Thul and Yogg-Saron. I know Yogg-Saron's not a Priest card, but it's normally ran in the Control Priest deck. Obviously, these are fantastic minions to get from Rest in Peace. If you get Aman'Thul, you just remove your opponent's card from the game, and then you don't have to worry about it, the one that they get summoned. If you get Yogg, you can steal it instead to get even more value, so I actually think this Rest in Peace card in Control Priest, it's actually going to be a really big card, especially in the Highlander package. I think both the Control non-Highlander version and the Highlander version will run this card. And actually, the big question will be, can you survive till you get to these big cards out on the board and you can, get such insane value from this card? So that is going to be the real question. Can you live long enough to start doing this? There's also some really memey shit you could do with Rest in Peace. You could pull out, like, Therazane multiple times and, run some elementals in your priest deck and make them super big elementals. You could also do this on the amalgams, for example, the new amalgam that gets shuffled back into your deck endlessly. You could do something like that. I think that is just a complete meme, though, but be aware that you could do that. Other things you could do, by the way, you could run this in the big Demon Hunter package that I was sort of alluding to last part. We mentioned about Cliff Dive with Illidari Inquisitor and All-Terrain Voidhound, potentially doing like 13 damage to the face for your Cliff Dive. If your Illidari Inquisitor dies, though, at some point in the game, it being cheated out by Rest in Peace is actually a really, really, really good get. You want to get in this big demons, if they ever are going to work, you need to cheat out as many Illidari Inquisitors as you can, because it's basically 8 damage to the face, right? You play your Rest in Peace, your opponent gets a minion. It's probably not that likely. It depends on the deck you're going against, of course, but there's a decent chance it won't be an 8/8 in stat line. You might be able to trade your Illidari Inquisitor into their minion, kill it, then you attack the face, because obviously it'll be a Demon Hunter, and then the Illidari Inquisitor attacks the face and pushes another 8 damage to the face. That is actually really, really frightening if you can pull that off, if it's a realistic outcome. Even if you can't trade it, just pushing the 8 damage first, and then maybe trading with the Rush minion afterwards, and maybe getting the kill that way, is still really, really good. Also worth noting, I mentioned this climbing hook. It's going to be difficult to keep 5-cost minions on the board. With Rest in Peace, that makes it way easier. It's actually a pretty good cheat to get a 5 or more attack minion on the board, so that works quite nicely with climbing hook. And then finally, I say that you want to get loads of Illidari Inquisitors. If you can get Jotun out as well, Jotun repeating Rest in Peace is potentially, like, insane value, like, truly, truly insane value. So yeah, I think one of the reasons that Jotun wasn't particularly good was that they didn't have a good enough spell pool in Demon Hunter to really abuse it. And as the set is slowly, like, the coming out, we are getting better quality cards accessible to Demon Hunters. And I think this is a really, really good one. And actually an alternate reason why you would tourist into Priest, to get these big value cards to go into your big value Demon Hunter deck. Do I think this is going to be a particularly strong deck? No, I don't think it will be, but just, you know, it's something you could test out. The final card, obviously we've not seen the Hunter Taurus yet. It is Chilling Vol'jin, 3 mana 3/3 legendary minion. As I said, it's the Hunter Taurus. You battle cry, choose 2 minions, you swap their stats. Obviously, this is a nod back to Vol'jin, who swapped health with another minion, or the tribute act after that, Shadowhunter Vol'jin, which shows a minion on the... actually, you could choose any minion, but you normally hit your opponent's minion and then swapped it with one in the owner's hand. Both of these cards saw play. Now, Vol'jin was a very different time in Hearthstone. It was a very early card, therefore. Would this see play now? We already know with, like, the cranes and stuff we've got from the set, the origami cranes, they don't really see play anymore, so Vol'jin probably wouldn't see play in Standard. Shadowhunter Vol'jin maybe would see play. It was better for disrupting, and we do see Dirty Rat, for example, in Standard right now. This gets us back to Chilling Vol'jin. Why would you run Chilling Vol'jin in your deck? Well, originally I was like, okay, well, obviously, you do something like this. You get an Illidari Inquisitor, you get a Falling Illidari, you attack the face, the Illidari goes face, pushes 8 damage, you swap them around, you give the charge minion the 8 stats, and then you charge for 8, and that's 16 damage! Wow! And then I suddenly realized you can't actually do that. Because you can't put the tourist card of the class you're touring into your deck, so you can't ever run this Chilling Vol'jin in your Demon Hunter deck, therefore this combo doesn't work. And then that got me thinking, I don't know what you would do with this card, to be honest with you. I'm actually not entirely certain either. You can tell me if I'm wrong on this. I don't think you can swap it with Vol'jin, right? I don't think that's how the battle cry would work. I think you have to pick 2 separate minions, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can select Vol'jin on Vol'jin's effect, but I'm not entirely certain. So if you can swap it with, you know, an opponent's minion, that's one of the reasons why you would do it. They play a big minion, you play Vol'jin, you swap the stats with one another. We have that currently in Standard. It's one of the origami beasts. It sees 0 play, so that kind of implies that Vol'jin wouldn't see any play because of that effect. Other reasons, though, that you might want to play Vol'jin, maybe you want to make your Adaptive Amalgam ginormous for whatever reason. Vol'jin is a way you could potentially do it. It's a very slow win condition, like extremely slow win condition, which makes me think, and this is probably going to be an eluding type thing for the Hunter package, you might want to give egg stats. So maybe it implies we're going to get some sort of Death Rattle Hunter package, maybe with eggs and stuff. I'm not sure. Anyway, that is the Priest package. I will say most of the Priest cards, I don't think we'll see any play in Priest. But you know, you control Priest lovers, maybe got like 3 or 4 cards that maybe you want to play with. Anyway, I am looking forward to checking out this Demon Hunter Priest a combination deck. I think it actually could be pretty good. In fact, I think if you're a Demon Hunter lover, this set has been really good for you. I think there's going to be multiple different decks and a lot of deck building variety for you to play with. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, why not leave a like and subscribe? Everything helps me out, and I'll see you again, I think, tomorrow for the Hunter reveals. Bye.